Okay, we're going to be talking about letterpress printing. This is all goes all the way back to Gutenberg in the late 1400s. This is essentially the printing that he invented. This video is from the Printing Museum in Leipzig, Germany. Dan McGregor and I visited there last spring. Um, so we'll go ahead and get started. There's some specific vocabulary that I'll highlight that I want you to get out of this.
And do all of these machines.
I'm going to turn the volume down from time to time to talk about this. So that right there is a punch. A punch cutter, which would generally be a type designer, would be cutting the punches. They would be carving this little piece of metal into a letter form. And so this is how all typefaces were designed. If you were a type designer, you were a punch cutter, and you're cutting the punches in the forms of all the different letter forms that you need at all the different sizes that you need them printed. You can imagine how long that would take to design an entire font. So a font would be A through Z and the numbers of all a specific typeface and a specific size. That does not include the italics, the bolds, the Romans. Those would be separate fonts within the family. But it would take years to carve these out. Okay, so once you have the punch carved out, you will then use that to punch an impression of it into a matrix. And so you always want to protect your punches. Again, as much time and effort it would take to carve those, you want to use them as little as possible. So you'd use that to punch into a matrix here. And so now you have it punched out. And now let's watch what happens. This is very exciting.
So, then you have here the manual casting instrument with the matrice into it. Then you close this instrument. Have here the hole. And
Molten metal is
so, then you flow here. You lick the metal in. So then you open it. And
how can it?
Yeah, it solidifies very quickly, but it's still very hot.
Yeah.
yes, you feel it.
With the gloves.
Yes. So I can make it again when you want. So the instrument.
That is something.
So here he has poured hot metal, melted hot metal into that instrument. It went down into the matrix and formed what they call a sort. What he is holding is a sort. And so you would make all the different letter forms that you would need for printing into these sorts. After this, I'm going to show you another video that kind of goes on, okay, so now what do we do with all of these sorts that we're making? I want to talk just a little bit more about punch cutting and show some more images of the punches and the matrices and the sorts. I just want to reiterate what kind of remarkable skill it would take to cut punches. This is how type designers design type. Up until fairly recently, actually, Matthew Carter, a significant contemporary type designer, who I believe is in his 70s, when he started his career, he was punch cutting, and now he, of course, designs on the computer. His career spans the amount of time that when they were punch cutting to now designing on the computer. I'll have you read an article about Matthew Carter later. He's a great type designer. So here's another image of some punches that you can kind of get a sense for the difficulty and skill and craftsmanship of what it would take to carve out these letter forms and all the different characters. Here's a case of punches. You can see not only were they carving out letters, they're carving them out backwards or flipped, kind of the mirror image, so that when they're impressed into the matrices, they become correct. So yeah, very difficult. So here are some images of that's a matrix, and then a case of matrices. There's another one. And then, of course, last, the sorts. This is a case of sorts, and we'll talk more about those. This is a composition stick. The matrices or the sorts will be composed into the stick, and then later go onto the press, and we'll kind of look at that in a few minutes, or in another video.